Welcome to Home Dad Chat, brought to you by the National At-Home Dad Network. My name is Brock,
My name is Danny.
and we are here to talk about life as stay-at-home dads. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
No, I don't want much. I even love handmade crafts made of macaroni. Come on now, you should know me. Times I might eat too much. No worry about my weight, got the dad bod rocking on me. Sketches on my feet, cargo shorts look good on me. I'm a dad, that's what I do.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Home Dad Chat. Tonight is going to be a night of bourbon. I told you last week we were going to have a bourbon guest on, and I went around and tried to see like who I wanted to get, and I ended up putting a question into my local bourbon club that I'm a part of that isn't just local guys, it's guys from around the area, outside of the state, and things like that too. And I ended up getting to meet someone that I've never met before, and we got the chance to talk a little bit on the phone last night, and I think that you guys are all going to enjoy talking to Keith Moore, who is a newer stay-at-home dad as well. And man, I tell you, you're going to want to watch the video on this on YouTube, because the background that Keith has is not a virtual background. It is his true room background of all the bourbons and scotches that he has. And we're just going to have a good time. Looks like Danny and Keith are going to enjoy a cigar, and I'm going to definitely enjoy me some of the bourbons that I have. But Keith, welcome to the show. How are you, man?
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. I'm doing well tonight. Just sitting here enjoying some bourbon and cigar, like you mentioned already. What I'm enjoying, because I know everybody, when I watch people enjoying bourbon and cigars, I like to know what they're enjoying. So tonight I'm enjoying an Arturo Fuente Hemingway signature. It's fantastic. It's one of my favorites. It's the Maduro wrapper, which is a little bit harder to find right now, but the flavor that comes out of this thing is fantastic. So for bourbon, of course, I'm drinking out of my Sacred Sippers Glencairn glass, but I'm enjoying a local favorite, John J. Bowman single barrel. It's among my favorites. It's got a very your normal vanilla, honey, oak flavors to it, but one of the things that I really like about it is the toasted almond flavor that comes, especially if you drink it behind coffee. Sometimes you drink one after the other, but also it complements the cigar very, very well.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I've actually never heard of that distillery before. Is that you said it's out in the Virginia area?
Yeah, it's in Virginia. It's actually, the distillery is about 10 minutes from my house.
Nice. That's convenient.
So it is convenient. With Virginia, yeah. Well, with Virginia being an alcohol beverage controlled state, they like to, I guess, put towards the front, kind of advertise a little more the Virginia brands of the Virginia distilleries. So this is actually, being bourbon month, bourbon celebration month. They've had some discounts on the the Virginia made spirits right now, not just whiskeys, but all of the spirits. So that's been kind of nice. Yeah. And it being among my favorites, it makes it a little more affordable about this time of year. So
that's cool, man. Yeah.
Nice.
Danny, what are you smoking and drinking tonight?
Well, unfortunately for any true cigar smokers, I'm just smoking a Yard Gar that I got out of my humidor because I needed to get rid of it.
That's all right.
Yard Gar, just so anybody knows, it's basically a cigar that you can smoke in the yard while you're cutting your grass or something like that. And if you get interrupted and you have to throw it down, you're only missing this. I think this was $1.50.
So, what brand would you use for those?
I
mean, to put you on the spot.
I don't have my glasses on. That's the problem. 1898 something. It's I don't know. I can't read it.
Well, for me, that would be the factory smokes. So I kind of put that.
It's
in
a factory smoke. Yeah, it's actually it's not even pressed. It's not hand rolled. It's machine rolled. You can taste the difference immediately. But for me, the experience of smoking a cigar is more about the commitment of the moment. Basically, how much time you're going to take to just kind of chill out. That's what a cigar is for me. Yeah. So I have I think 8 or 9 nice cigars left that when we moved in, I got housewarming gifts, which was amazing. And a very good friend of mine, and also one of our family members, my wife's aunt, all sent me cigars. And I'm like, Yeah. Okay. That's cool. I can do this. So, but this one was, unfortunately, I went in and I grabbed what I thought was a better cigar, and I came out here and I had it, and I'm like, I'm not going to go in and get another one. We got to get rolling. So, and also again, bourbon's not really the thing that I'm, really into.
Okay.
It's delicious, but I've just gotten more used to scotches, and I really like scotch a little bit better. But because, tonight I do have a bottle of Woodford Reserve. And
Fantastic.
it's good. Yeah. It's
That's a double oak you got back there behind you.
That is a double oak. That is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is not. This is not. So
that's all right. Yeah. Woodford makes a good product no matter what it is. So
yep.
I agree.
And that's what I was telling Danny before we got on, was the fact I was like, you've picked a good bourbon, it's reputable, and it's also the official bourbon of the Kentucky Derby. So you're in good shape there. So, and my wife is a huge fan of the double oak from Woodford Reserve. That's something that I usually will
That's
try to
fantastic
keep
that she enjoys that with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of our pastors at church, he and his wife both enjoy whiskey.
Nice.
My wife does not like whiskey, but she enjoys the hunt, which is very good for me. So if she's out and about and she's, remembering something that I said I really wish that I wanted, she'll be on the lookout for it and she'll bring it home for me, and it's fantastic.
That is one thing that my wife will do from time to time. She'll be looking around for things. Recently, she was looking for a bottle of Eagle Rare for me because one of the guys from Sacred Sippers, Ryan Sidholm, I had hooked him up with getting on the podcast to talk about his ministry out west, and he gave me a bottle of Eagle Rare as a thank you, and I had never had it before. Oh my gosh, I'm pretty much in love with it. It's so good.
It's good stuff. Yeah,
but it's hard to find, so I was
it's one of those things. It's not like it's a unicorn per se, but it is harder to find depending on where you live. So
right.
There are some places, I'm going to say Texas just as a state, I can go to Texas and find the shelves stocked with the stuff. But you go anywhere else, or Virginia, for example, we can't really find it right now.
Yeah.
When they first put out the stuff for the state, then it's pretty easy to find.
Yeah, actually, there's one of the guys that we talk to on a regular basis in the Dad Lounge, which is our weekly Zoom hangout for dads. He was like, man, if you could pick me up a bottle of Buffalo Trace, that would be awesome. I'm like, dude, I could go down to Costco in Kentucky and pick you up a freaking like fifth of it, like a fifth. Well, I could pick him up like a big old bottle of it. Like, and that's not a hard thing to do. And he was like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I could get you like a massive size bottle.
I'll tell you what, Brock, you give me a handle of Buffalo Trace and I'll give you 2 bottles of the Irish.
I can definitely make that happen. I've got to go get one.
It's so hard. It's so hard to find here, man. It really is so hard to find.
That's a good idea. I'll definitely put that on my list because, like I said, I got to go pick one up for this other guy anyway. So that's perfect. But yeah, so I want to kind of turn the page on things a little bit here. So, Keith, you're a stay-at-home dad. I just kind of want to get a little bit of your story. Like, how did you become a stay-at-home dad? How many kids do you got? What's family life like for you?
All right. So I've got 2 kids. One still at home. My oldest is my son. He's 24. He is working and living down in Mississippi. I miss him every day, but of course, they grow up and they leave.
Yep.
My daughter, who is 16, she's still at home, obviously. And she's homeschooled. I'm a homeschool dad instead of just being a stay-at-home dad, because I know not every stay-at-home dad does homeschool.
Yep.
I'm not getting too much into the weeds, but there's a lot of things in the way society was turning that I really didn't want my daughter to be exposed to. So that's the decision we chose to go, or that's the direction we chose to go.
Yeah.
And of course, I don't do all the homeschooling just because, there's other people that I know are better at teaching certain subjects. So she's part of a homeschool co-op, which has been fantastic. The people are fantastic. The kids are great. Of course, it's a group of kids we have from a church because it's held at a church. But yeah, that's pretty much that. So being a stay-at-home dad, I've only been about 5 years now. About 5 years ago, I was a career firefighter paramedic, a federal firefighter paramedic at Quantico, and simple injury. Not getting into the weeds as to what happened because it's not that exciting, to be honest with you. I got hurt at work. It didn't heal on its own, so about 6 months later, I had to have surgery. As a result of that surgery, I developed a systemic neurologic illness disease. We'll call it complex regional pain syndrome. Puts me in pain all day, every day. Some days are better than others, but there's no cure. There's kind of like a remission type thing you can go into, but that's not really a guaranteed thing for everybody. So I was medically retired for that, and wanted to figure out what to do with my life from this point forward. And a lot of that time so far as spent has been in trying to figure out recovery and how to get back to some sort of normalcy, which I really still haven't figured out, if I'm being quite honest. But taking seminary classes, homeschooling my daughter, trying to be a good husband to my wife, having 2 dogs, to keep me company during the day is a lot of fun too. But so it's funny because of my schedule, when I was working a at least a 72-hour week schedule. So really, with my wife working an hour and a half, 2 hours away from home, that time for having dogs, which I love, was not really there. So I said, once I retire, and this was before my illness, I said, once I retire, there's 2 things I'm going to get. I'm going to get a dog and I'm going to grow my beard. And I have them both now. Lovely, supportive family. And I tell you what, my wife is my rock. And I don't know that any man could be a stay-at-home dad without a loving, and not only loving, but understanding and supportive wife.
Amen to
and
that.
of course, my view on marriage is 100% biblical, which wasn't always the case because I wasn't always a believer. But when I think about how we're supposed to view our family, one of the things that I wrote that kind of popped up on my Facebook memory today, ironically, of all the times right before that I was getting on your podcast, I was like, I got to mention this. It said, men, we are called to leave our wives and children sacrificially. According to Scripture, a married man is the head of his family, but the fool refuses the counsel of his wife. Husbands are commanded to love their wives as Christ loves the church, which is an impossible task since his love is perfect. But with the Spirit of God, we can be steadfast in our pursuit. So I think that's one of the things that's important to recognize is we as men, even though we are stay-at-home dads, we're still the leaders of our family. For those that prescribe to a biblical, viewpoint, it's hard to balance for somebody who doesn't have humility, both as a wife and as a husband.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that has really kind of resonated and strengthened me through this ordeal.
Definitely. Yeah. We've talked about what it looks like to lead your family on podcasts before, and just, how that plays out and the partnership, with your spouse and that kind of thing. So yeah, totally can resonate with that. It's kind of funny. Like, so, you talk about how it is such an interesting balance of leading and what that looks like for your families. We had a missionary from Nigeria here at the house a couple of years ago, before COVID. And his mind was completely blown away by the fact that I was a stay-at-home dad, and also was like, still looked at as the leader of the house, even though like I was not bringing home the paycheck and all that kind of stuff. And it took an evening where we sat down and I just let him ask questions because he was so curious. And at his, he was here for a week actually for a class that we put on at our church. And at the end, they do like an exit interview asking them different questions. And he said that he was like, my mind is completely open to the fact that husbands, that fathers can actually be at home, take care of the kids, and also lead in a biblical fashion with their family and stuff. And he was really like, he's like, the way that Brock and Corey like do family is unlike anything I've ever heard of before. And I was just like, I'll take that compliment. I really will.
Yeah.
Well, it takes a strong family unit to be able to do that. It's
right.
You have to have the willingness and the cooperation of the kids too, because it's different for them. Oh
yeah, definitely, for sure. So yeah, well, thanks for sharing about your family. That's awesome to hear, like there's the setup and what you're doing. While you were talking too, and I was listening, the one thing I forgot to tell you is what I'm drinking tonight. You guys are sharing. I'm like, man, I never got to tell you what I'm drinking tonight. So this is actually a Sacred Sippers barrel pick. This is
hold it up, Rock. Hold it up.
Yeah. So this is this is the Starlight Distillery Carl T. Huber. It's their double oaked bourbon, and this is 116.4 proof. This was aged in an American oak barrel 4 years. This stuff is amazing.
Is that the double oak?
It's the double oaked. I am a
Okay.
huge fan of double oak, just like my wife. And this, honestly, to me, it's like caramel and cherries with like a light smoke on it, and it's smooth. And that, even though it's at 116, it's not something that like heats up your palate. And it doesn't give you that sort of like, wow, that's really hot. Like, it is just a super smooth, well done bourbon that, honestly, like, if I if I had the ability to have it at the house all the time, it would be it would be one to do with that. But it's, yeah, it was a good pickup.
Yeah.
So, hey, on that note, and I'm going to do a shameless plug of Sacred Sippers real quick. If there's any
Yeah, do
Christians
it,
in the
man.
community who want to, look us up or look into us, it is a private group right now, but send Brock or myself or somebody, a PM, and we'll be glad to add you.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
it's a community of Christian brothers and sisters who just want to celebrate the gift that God has given us, in the form of whiskey, and we celebrate it. And of course, we don't just exclusively use it in Christian circles. We can use it for evangelistic tools too. It's great for that. I know one of our admins, Ryan, is really big into using it for evangelism. He does
Oh
really
yeah.
well with that. But yeah, it's just come on over and join us. That pick that Brock showed you, the Starlight, the Huber, is one of our more recent ones. One that was kind of released at the same time was the apple brandy finish, which is the one that I have. I believe that one is right up here, and it's a bourbon that was finished in apple brandy casks, and it is phenomenal as well. If you taste Apple Jacks and that, I mean, it's a really good,
Sweet,
really good finish on that.
That's interesting. So one of the things I learned on my trip out west was I actually met a couple from Wisconsin who they work at a distillery. Yeah, hey, Danny. Danny
I'm
just
all
moved up there.
Wisconsin now, man.
I know
It's
you're
been
all
like 3 weeks. Yeah.
Where's your cheesehead hat at?
Right, I am a cheesehead. It's official.
In more
That's
ways than
I'm shaping my mohawk into a wedge of cheese.
In more ways than one that you are a cheesehead. You're just
the state and just like personality.
Straight up, yeah. But no, they were talking about the fact that, and even Paul Gordon mentioned this to me as well. Apparently, like, Wisconsin is like known as like the leading producer of brandy. I didn't know that, but that's one of the things that Paul was telling me. And then I met this couple and they were like, oh yeah, like Wisconsin produces tons of brandy. And I was like, that's wild. And I guess like these folks in particular were producing like an apple brandy of some kind. He actually had it there. I got to try it when we were because we stayed at a campground just behind Mount Rushmore. And he's like, oh yeah, he's like, I've got some of this. He's like, is it too early to try? He's like, because I think it was like 9 o'clock in the morning. He's like, is it too early to try some brandy? I'm like, no, no, it's not. Not if you're sharing, buddy. Like, pull it out.
I got a cup. You got stuff. Come on, let's go.
Yeah. So it was good stuff. So that was something that was new to me. That I learned on that trip was, just different things like that. So yeah, I haven't had the apple brandy. What did you think of that?
It's fantastic, man. I mean, it's got a great finish and it's 116 proof, just like the one that
Nice.
you have there. So it is a lot higher in proof. The reason that I like some of the higher proof stuff is I like to be able to see what it does when I add a few drops, proof it down. I'll start with a few drops, enjoy it, see what it does on the palate, see what it does on the finish. Even on the nose, it'll change a little bit. But see kind of how it develops. You can tell when it gets too watered after your first dram. But yeah, that's what I like to do is explore each expression that I have.
Yeah.
I mean, it's harder it's possible to do with some 40% or 80 proof whiskeys, but I don't say that, if you're not really drinking whiskey, if it's not 40 or it's not over 40%, because there are those guys that are out there. But but like some of the guys in the whiskey tribe on another YouTube channel, like to say is, enjoy whiskey, drink what you like and the way you like to drink it.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Now, me personally, I drink my whiskey neat. I don't like it on ice or with rocks. I don't like it watered down. I like it as it's intended to come from the distillery. But however anybody else wants to drink it is on them. Now, I'll enjoy an old fashioned or something like that every now and then. But for the most part, I like it. I like to drink it neat.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Danny and I, so one of the things why I wanted to bring you on here was because Danny and I are going to be driving a couple of van loads of stay-at-home dads. to the Bourbon Trail for the Home Dad Con, sort of like extracurricular event, like before that convention goes on. And I know that's not something that you know a lot about because
I wish I could join you.
Trust me, I would love for you to join us. Honestly, like I know that it's such a short notice on things, but it was like one of those things where it's like, hey, did you know about this? And you're like, no, and I'm like, oh, okay, we.
Well, it's like before we talked, I didn't even talk about the national, at home dad network. I've never heard of it,
right?
And it's been around for quite a long time.
Yeah, it has. And then, and like I said, like, so Danny and I are going to be taking a couple of van loads of guys down and doing the tour. And it's so difficult now, especially with COVID and the different like things that are going on. Like only so many people can get into the distilleries, which is difficult.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
And, like, for instance, I was really hoping to get the guys in for a tour at Buffalo Trace, but that's not going to happen because they filled up immediately. But we're going to stop at the gift shop and at least give guys a chance to maybe grab up some of the bottles that they put out on a daily basis.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's a great chance to possibly maybe even get my bottle of Eagle Rare while I'm down there, or to get a bottle of Blanton's or Weller's or whatever they put out. But there's a lot of guys that are just interested in going to it. Danny, so just to kind of throw things to you, this is something that's going to be new for you. Is there anything particular? What are you looking forward to about going on this tour?
Well, I will say first off, for me personally, I've always been the kind of guy that when everybody else was partying, I was the guy that kind of stood back. I never really drank. So I kind of just watched everybody and made sure everybody was safe. So for this, you and I are driving. So it's kind of that situation. And I'm really looking forward to, this is just dorky of me, but I want to take these guys and have them and just have a fantastic time at all these distilleries and have them try all of these things that they've never even heard of, maybe for them to pick up the ones that they're really interested in, like you said, to get that one bottle that you've really been looking for, that I think you call it a unicorn.
Yeah.
So you're looking for that, or one of the Dusties, you're looking for those things that just really don't have an opportunity to get. And above and beyond that, just the fact that you're going to have, it's what, 10 guys plus the driver in each van. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Right now it's
10.
Right now it's setting at about 10 and 10. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's me and 10 dads who I will definitely know every single one of them very well by the end of this trip. But just driving around, stopping at a distillery, going in, trying some amazing stuff, having fun, and then, just getting back with your tribe kind of thing, but doing it with a little bit of, hey, have you ever tried this? And that moment of, oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. That's that. What is that now? Oh, that's amazing. That's the best I've ever had. Or, maybe, I don't really like that one, but have you tried this? And that sharing that you get when we're all going to be standing in a distillery, not you and me drinking, but all of us are standing in a distillery sharing drinks. Yeah. And it's a moment of camaraderie that I think you really can't get any other way. It's just a moment of maturity and dadness, in my opinion. It's like, what do dads do? Oh, we're gonna, beer. Nah, we're good. You can have a beer trade. That's fine. We're gonna go bourbon. How about we go bourbon? Because look where we are.
Yeah.
Bourbon capital of the world, in my opinion. So let's go and do it right.
Definitely.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing how the guys interact and just kind of leading them in and seeing who I have to carry off the van at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Try to get people. Hey, no, that's 27. You need to back off, man.
Yeah, definitely keeping an eye. That, yeah, for sure.
Just taking care of them and letting them have a good time.
I was able to secure at least one full like tour and tasting at a distillery that's a much smaller, unknown place called Three Brothers Farm Distillery, which it seems like there's quite a few people in the TikTok community. Like there's an amazing bourbon TikTok community that I got to be a part of here recently. They helped me get to like 1,000 followers, and actually just keeps climbing in that, but which gives you like the ability to go live and stuff.
Oh,
but
cool.
That community itself has done some amazing things for people in that group. And I have to give them a shout out, because honestly, there was a family recently who they lost a loved one to COVID.
Oh, wow.
And while he was in the hospital, the community came together one night. They put on, like, it's amazing how they did it, because you had to go around all these different avenues for how you're going to like do an auction where you're going to auction off alcohol online. And they did this massive auction and they raised over $50,000 for this family that was going through this traumatic situation. And it was like, I think about a week or two ago that it was announced that unfortunately, like COVID took his life. And it was a long, like month long battle that he went through. So, but it's just stuff like that. Like those are the kind of things, like, I mean, you see that even in the Sacred Sippers where it's like, you know, you're raising money for different things, like Aruna, I believe that's the name of it.
That's it. It was Aruna.
Aruna is something that we're always raising money for in the Sacred Sippers, which I don't know a whole lot about, and I'll get to it here in a second, Keith, for sure.
No worries.
We'll just give a little bit of a tease into it. But yeah, we'll talk about that here in a second. But yeah, so like Three Brothers Farm Distillery, we're going to go on that tour, and there's a tasting. And the thing that's fun about that place and what drew me to it was, one, they were really excited to have a group of stay-at-home dads come. But two, it's a cigar-friendly distillery. So when you're in the tasting room, you can actually smoke a cigar. And then on top of that, you're actually taking samples straight out of the barrels. So it's not something that's bottled. Like you're actually pulling out of the barrel, filling up your tasting glass. And then if there's something, if you like one of the barrels, you then get the ability to actually fill your bottle on site, like, which is really cool because you get to do the whole process from like drawing it out to filling it in the bottle. And I was like, man, that's the experience I wanted to give the guys who were coming from all over the country. And I can't even think of one big time distillery that even does that. Maker's Mark is probably the only one that comes close to it. And that's when you get to dip the bottle, and that's about it. So
I know Jim Beam, my wife went out, she was in Louisville for a month for training for work, and she went to the distillery and filled the bottle, filled from.
Nice.
Yeah, and did a select stock Jim Beam. I haven't tried it yet because it's the only one I'm ever gonna. So here's my problem: if I get something, and I gotta be honest with you guys, if I have a bottle that I can only find one of, I have a hard time cracking it because I know once I get into it, if I like it, I'm gonna go through it and it's gonna be gone. Yeah. So that being said, I mean, I've got some pretty nice bottles like a Macallan 18 and a Highland Park 17, the light, which are more expensive bottles, but there's sentimental value to those as well. And, you know, my wife bought both of those for me. Just not getting off topic, but, you know, I'll let you finish. I'll get into those in a minute. I know we're short. We have a time restraint tonight. So if I go along with it, there's a lot I want to say if you guys.
No, you're fine.
Oh, yeah, that's only you though. That's definitely not Brock or I at all. So you need to watch yourself, sir, because rabbit trail off into what? Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm terrible. When I used to teach paramedic classes, I was very good at staying on task because I knew exactly the line I wanted to go down. But anything else that I'm doing, you know, with church groups or anything like that, or just sitting around, you know, kind of hanging out with the guys, man, I'll get off on a rabbit trail. It's terrible.
Yeah. Easily. Well, especially if it's something you're passionate about. And honestly, that's what I love about most of the people that we have on. The reason that we want to talk to them is because of that passion.
Definitely.
It's that thing that they love and they want to talk about. And I don't know a better way to get to know someone than just asking them, so what do you love?
Right.
You know, and if their first thing is, you know, bourbon, okay, cool. But probably not the first thing, but whatever it is, it's going to give you an insight into what their passion is and what they're interested in and what they want to talk about. So I love it. You know, I love that passion that you have for not just bourbon, you know, for all the things, but I love that you can do that and you're willing to come to here and do it for us, you know. I think it's cool.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
So give me the elevator pitch, Keith, on what Aruna is and how that works.
Yeah, I don't want to make anything up. So I actually pulled up what they say that their mission is.
Good deal.
So Aruna projects bring and sustain freedom to victims of commercial sexual exploitation through employment marked by holistic care. So it's basically for women who have been sexually exploited, and it's a way to help get them back into getting them a trade, getting them housed, and getting them on their feet and out of sexual exploitation, which is a huge problem in India. So that's pretty much what it's for, and it's a fantastic cause.
Definitely. And I think that's the one thing that, you know, when you hear people say like, oh, I'm a part of a bourbon club or whatever it is, they're like, oh, you just like buy, sell, and trade bourbon, and that's it. It's like, not this group. Like, we actually try to raise above more of that. And I think that that's one of the things. Yeah, we have a purpose. And I think that that's one of the reasons why it drew me to the group. And then on top of it too, like, I got in there and then found out there was a bunch of guys that I like went to college with that are in there, and other local ministers and things like that. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, you think about when I was in college at a Christian university here in town, like, you kind of had to like hide the fact that you liked bourbon or beer or anything along those lines. And it was like, I had this philosophy of like, dude, like, you shouldn't have to, like, if you're not like over exceeding and you're just enjoying it, like, it shouldn't have to be something that you hide. And
absolutely,
being a part of the Sacred Sippers has really been able to show me like that there's a culture out there of just really appreciating a craft that's well made. And we're so close to it here in Cincinnati. It's only 90 minutes south of us. It's amazing to be able to enjoy it the way we do.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Brock, because it's one of those things that if people talk about, just drinking straight anything that's liquor based, they usually equate that with drunkenness. Of course, as Christians, we're against drunkenness. Like I said before, I wasn't always a Christian. I was in the Navy for 5 years as a Navy corpsman. I spent a lot of time drinking, I would say, unbiblically as a secular individual. But as I've aged and walked through my Christian life, I've really come to enjoy and appreciate what the distillers actually intend for the consumers to experience when it comes into this glass, instead of just turning the bottle up and glugging it down or taking shots. And I just I look back on all the times that I've been drunk, and I look at how much of an idiot that I used to be, being quite honest. And I'm only talking about myself, not talking to anybody else. I didn't always drink responsibly, is the bottom line. And I really enjoy, not just feel obligated to enjoy it responsibly now.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to get into, we've got about 10 minutes here before things kind of close up on us.
30 minutes. Gotcha. Okay.
I want to, 30 minutes. There you go. Like, he's full of jokes tonight. You can edit. I know. So here's what I want to know though, because I feel like this is a conversation that always sort of happens when you get guys around or whatever. And I'm curious, because especially with you, with your collection, what are, what's your daily drinker? Like, what's the one where you're like, this is the one I don't have any problem like pulling this open because I know I can get it freely, but I love it. What is that for you?
I got to be honest with you. My daily drinker I've selected because I think it's the best bang for your buck. And it's usually a competition between this and Wild Turkey 101. But mine is Evan Williams Bottled in Bond. It is a fantastic flavor. It's nutty. It's got that corn dust flavor to it. It's just got that great mouthfeel. It's got that long finish that I'm looking for, because it's 100 proof. Everything Bottled in Bond is at least 100. Is 100 proof.
Yep.
So that would be what I call daily drinker, even though I don't necessarily drink daily.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I get that too. Danny, do you have something that you go to? Like, you're like, this is something like, if I want this drink this time, and I know that it's not going to be like, oh, like if I finish it, I can't find another one. Like, do you have about, what is it? Abelor?
Abelor. Yeah.
What is that exactly? Can you explain that one a little bit?
It's one of my favorites. It's fantastic.
No, I can't explain it too much. I know that I like it, and sorry, man. But going
I'm gonna have to find it now.
It's a good Scotch. It's one of the 10 great Scotches, I think, or it was when I picked it up. And I generally run a cheaper bottle, but I think it's a 10-year that I've got. But I will keep that bottle for 18 months. Or longer. I mean, I don't drink often, and I don't drink
with
any regularity. I don't know about good, but generally, for the name of your distillery, your brand is Sacred Sippers. Right. That's what I'm doing. I'm sipping. If I did pour 2 tonight. I've got my Woodford Reserve because I wanted to have a bourbon, and we had a bourbon in the house. Let's go. But also the one that I'm really enjoying, but wouldn't be my go-to because it was a gift. And but I've got a Sakura cask whiskey called the Matsui, excuse me, Matsui, and it's a Japanese whiskey.
Japanese, yeah, good stuff.
And it's 48% by the label, and it is as sweet and smooth as a cherry blossom to me.
How would you define smooth? Because that's a very, very subjective term.
All of the warmth, but none of the fire.
Okay. So it's the lack of heat, so to speak.
Yeah, it's got a good. I mean, it makes you feel. You do get a little warm, but it doesn't have that. Whoa, okay, that was good, but it burned me. Like drinking a Coke straight out of the can and your eyes all water. That kind of burn. It doesn't have that, which a lot of them do. And I will look for that in some of them. But for this one, this was a gift from my wife, and I never would have gotten this for myself because it's just I'm not even saying it was expensive, but it's kind of like, well, I like these things and I'm not going to buy something for myself that's, even if it's like $30, $20, if I'm not going to know that I like it, I have a hard time buying things for myself, because then what if I just what do I have to leave it in the cabinet for 10 years and then eventually throw it out when she's not looking or something, But with this one, she bought it for me and I have enjoyed every bit of it. It's got the same smoothness too on my palate that mead has. And if you've had mead, it's an incredibly sweet, it's made of honey, so it's just a much sweeter taste. And the Matsui doesn't have that sweetness, but it has that almost cloying, like the smell of cherry blossoms for me. You get that, and it's just going to stick with you. And that's what I like about the Matsui. But Aberlour is my go-to.
Well, we'll tell you that little bit of heat in the back of your throat, we like to call that the Kentucky hug. That's what that's known as. So you probably hear that too when you're on the trail. So that's one of the things they talk about. But yeah,
nice.
For me, my go-to is, and this is one that I just found a while back, and the price point on it is always like on spot for me. It's Old Granddad 101. That is such a delicious, just smooth, like, I don't know. For me, like, if there's something where like I just want to pour a nice bourbon, sip on it, and just relax and chill out for the night, like that's typically what I go for. I haven't had it in the house for a while, but it's one I can also get to in a fairly large bottle at like the local liquor store in Kentucky, and just have it around the house for a good period of time.
I'd say that old Granddad 114 is pretty good too. If you haven't had that, I would give that a pull.
That's my next on the list of things to try from them for sure. So
I know that the Party Source has it, because that's where I got it.
Yeah. That's not too far from where we're staying at too for Home Dad Con. So I've got a lot of guys I've been talking to about that. So that's sort of like my go-to. I would say currently right now, one of my favorites that I've been enjoying, it was one that my brother-in-law gave me when we were out on the trip. I didn't try it yet, but it was this small batch one, 1792. And honestly, like, I couldn't believe how smooth this was. And my wife and I pretty much fell in love with it. And I feel like it's one that's going to probably be a staple in the house for quite a while.
Nice. That shows the subjectivity of what people like in certain bourbon. I mean, it's a very popular bourbon. I've heard it's very good. It's just not one that I prefer, just because it doesn't hit my palate well.
Sure.
And the nose is great. But it's not something that's resonated well with me, and I have a hard time sticking around with something that doesn't truly resonate with me. So.
Well, and that's the thing with bourbon. I mean, like, everybody's palate's going to be different too. I mean, depending on what you've eaten that night, or just, all those different things, like it's going to hit your palate different. It's always fun too to like watch people like try different bourbons. It's like, and how they drink it, like, because there is a specific way in which like you can kind of get a better idea, I feel like, on the feel, like as far as like holding it in your mouth and kind of getting it around and touching your, the insides of your cheeks and stuff, to be able to get that full feel on it before you actually swallow it.
Some people do what they call the Kentucky Chew, which I've never been a big fan of.
Because
it kind of overpowers with the ethanol on the palate, and I don't appreciate that too much. But what I look for more is how does the Kentucky Chew is kind of when you take a small sip and you kind of just really basically just chew it around your mouth. You take a sip and just to kind of get it all over the place. But I think that kind of coats the entire mouth a little too much for me. I like to see what it does immediately on the palate, like with a hot sip of coffee, and then establish what it does on the finish. I really like a good finishing bourbon or scotch. And typically you have a longer finish with stuff that's more heavy in the oil, stuff that might be unfiltered or non-shell filtered.
I tend to, when I drink, when I take a drink of bourbon, I almost like with my tongue, I'll split it so that it runs down both sides of my cheeks. and then kind of comes back like up towards my tongue a little bit, and then like so like I get that sort of full deal. It's not really a chew, but it's just a way to coat and then swallow it, and then you have that like lasting taste that while you're talking and stuff, like you still are, have it there, enjoying it. So like that kind of carries on that sipping formation for the day.
Brock, one of the things that I wanted to mention, and I'm not trying to mess up your format of your time here, of course. But,
no, you're good, man. Go.
How does your kids? I'm not sure how old both your guys' kids are. I know we talked about it, Brock, but I can't really remember. I'm sorry for that.
Mine are 5 and 8.
5 and 8, right? And how about you, Danny?
7, 8, 12, and 15.
Okay, so maybe the 15-year-old and possibly the 12 really kind of focus and see you drinking, and know really what it is. How do your kids view you drinking alcohol, and how do you deal with them talking to them?
That's a good question.
We know I wanted to answer this. I'm sorry, Rock.
No, go for it. No, you're not interrupting me. I was just saying it's a good question. Go for it, Danny.
Okay, all right, sorry. But well, for me, I'm much more open about alcohol and tobacco as well, nicotine, all these things. And I am not in any way keeping anything of what I am away from my kids. But since they've grown up with it, like I've smoked cigars for at least 20 years, I guess, and have had scotch and cognac and whiskey and all those things. And my wife likes beer, right? So we have these things around the house, and they're not a mystery, and they're not a, let's put that in the cabinet. Well, we do put it in a cabinet where nobody can see it, but we're not like locking it away or anything like that to keep it from the kids. And it's just like, I'm a stay-at-home dad, and my wife is the breadwinner. And for them, that's just normal. There's no, oddity about it. They don't think, well, that's weird that you're staying home, because they had their whole life doing it, right? The same way with scotch, or any alcohol, really. My kids know what it is. Even my 15-year-old, I've told him, look, if you go into high school, before you're 21, and you're in college even, and you have kids that want you to try beer or alcohol or anything like that, and you get curious, come sit down with me. And you want to try a beer, I will let you have a beer right in front of me, and you will stay in front of me, and I won't force you to drink the whole thing, but I think I think I should, but the exposure's there if they want it. And the reason I do that is because a long time ago about parenting, someone gave an illustration of a child as being a spring that will always grow stronger, right? So you can hold a spring, but it's constantly getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And eventually it's going to pop out. So your mindset for me as a parent is to slowly release it, to let that spring, it's going to go no matter what you do. So trying to hold it is just going to make that when it goes, it's going to go far, as opposed to a spring that you're slowly giving, more and more responsibilities to, let's say for a child, where whatever they're doing, including if they end up wanting to drink or want to smoke cigars, yeah, okay, that's going to happen. That's out there in the world, and it's very common, and it doesn't have to be alcoholism or addiction or anything like that. Although I have told them no drugs. That's not. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't have to be that extreme of it. It doesn't have to be drunkenness. It can be simply, I enjoy the flavors of this scotch, and this is why. I've let all of my kids try scotch. They all hate it. And I hope that they will always hate it. I've told each of them, because they look at my cigar and they get curious. I'm like, do you want to take a pull on this? It's terrible. It's awful, but yeah. And you will throw up, but do you want to do this? And none of them have done it really. So for me, the exposure is just kind of, this is what we do. It's as simple as cutting the grass, It's just a part of what I do as a dad and what we do. I said we do as a family, but what we have in our environment, and it's nothing crazy or a way out there or anything like that for us, simply because it's a common thing, I
like that response. Would you like to hear mine?
Yeah, man, definitely. I want to hear yours because, for mine, I mean, it's really simple. Like my 8-year-old, for this year for Father's Day, he told my wife that he wanted to get me some beer or bourbon, because he knows that he sees me drink it. He understands that I like and I enjoy it.
That's great though. That's fantastic.
And she was like, well, we just got back from a trip where we brought back 8 bottles of whiskey. So let's go the beer route. And she asked me like what I was looking for. And it was really nice because she took the kids up to my favorite bottle shop and walked in and talked to them and said, hey, like, for Father's Day, the kids want to get their dad some bourbon or some beer, and he really likes barrel aged stouts, and he likes sours. And so they helped them find like 8 different ones. And it was so funny because the kids, they picked all of the different cans and bottles out based on what the labels were.
Yeah.
So
nice.
I had some really funny like labels of like dinosaurs and ducks and just, in like panthers and all kinds of different goofy things. But they were, and unicorn farts too, by the way. And so, I mean, just all these different ones, but it was great because like they're understanding like, okay, like this is something that Papa really enjoys, like later in the evening, that kind of stuff. And I feel like that's something in my family, we always kept it in the forefront. It also helped the fact that my dad and I and my brother all worked for the Miller Coors distributor in town when we got older. So, so it's been around the house for quite a while. So having that conversation has been pretty simple. And too, like for like Easter and Christmas, we'll have wine, and we'll tend, like, the kids are like, what is that? And we're like, this is like a juice. And we explain it to them. And, we've let them actually try sips of it just to see what it's like. And, for the most part, they're like, okay. And, we explain to them like, this is something that adults drink. So, getting a sip of this just not something that you get on a regular basis. And it comes with responsibilities and that kind of thing. So I feel like that's more of like the European side of things and the fashion of how like families definitely introduce that to their kids and stuff. But Keith, yeah, how does that work for you?
So in my house, of course, there's just the 16-year-old at this time. But my son does enjoy cigars. He does enjoy whiskeys, but he didn't really know how to enjoy, walk through the steps of tasting and nosing a whiskey until about a year ago, when my son and my daughter and my wife all went down there for Thanksgiving to Mississippi. And we walked through it. I mean, I walked through it with him. I walked through it with my daughter. Now, my daughter's a little unique because she's still at home and she still has the experience of being with me every day. Whenever I do a fresh crack on a new bottle, she gets the first sip. And it's just the sip, and that's all she gets. It's because I want her to know how to nose. She was looking for the things like the certain notes to pick up in a whiskey, and she on the sip she gets the palate, and she also gets the finish. She knows how to nose it with her mouth open, so it gives you a different profile. You don't get all that ethanol heavy, but it's also taught her. And I asked her before we got on tonight, tell me what it's like from your perspective to do this, because I want to know what she's thinking and how she's thinking it, and she says it's taught me to enjoy it responsibly.
Yes.
She's taught me that she said it's taught me that I don't have to go to a party and drink and get drunk in order to have a good time. I can, hang out with friends when I'm of age and pour a small dram of whiskey and enjoy the night without getting drunk. It doesn't have to be that. And to be quite honest, the distillers would tell you it wasn't intended for that.
Bingo.
I don't drink rot, a lot of people would call rot gut, and that's what you enjoy, man. Hey, rock on with it. But I'd like to stay middle of the road, kind of mid-range to high range stuff, which also keeps me in check a little bit financially because, stuff's not cheap. Especially when you talk about, import taxes and all that kind of stuff. With Scotch, they tend to be a little more expensive, but it also gives her the ability to find out what she likes. So when she turns 21, she and I can, at home if we want to, or going out to, someplace that she wants to go to, and enjoy it responsibly. And I don't have to worry about holding her hair back in the toilet at the middle of the night because she overindulged. That's what I don't want that for my daughter. I can't imagine anybody wants that for their kids. Even my son being 24 years old, he told me, he's a grown man. He's on his own now, but he's still my kid. And for him to tell me that, I'm glad that you taught me how to appreciate whiskey meant a lot to me, and a little bit, not getting into too much of my testimony here, because I know that's not really what the format of the show is, but the only reason that I'm a Christian is because of my son. I was an agnostic for the majority of my life. And I spent a lot of years trying to talk him out of what he knew to be true in Christ. So about age 18, or 17, I'm sorry, he was still, praying for me, and in his youth group, he prayed for me one week. The following week, and I didn't know this ahead of time, I came to Christ. But I attribute a lot of my salvation, my conversion. Of course, it was all from God, but he used my son as a tool to be a fisher of men, to bring his son to Christ. So that was huge. And the fact now that my son said that God used him to bring me to Christ, but now he's using me to teach him theology. And that means more than I can express now. I mean, it's just, there's nothing better in my life than to hear that from both my son and my daughter, that I'm a huge spiritual influence. You talk about pressure too. Yeah, that's a lot of pressure. But yeah, so there's that. So my daughter she can tell you what my favorite whiskeys are. She can teach an adult who's never drank whiskey how to taste. And she's 16. She's almost 17. But I love that she can appreciate that without the stigma that's attached to it.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's awesome, man. No, definitely. Thanks for sharing that. Cause I think that's one thing that a lot of parents in general just are like, okay, what does that look like to, talk to your kids about alcohol and,
a lot of that's what we model too. And that's a big part of it.
Sure.
What do you model with your kids?
Yeah.
Whether you're a stay-at-home dad or a working dad, it's what you model.
Agreed. Yeah, very much so. I agree with that.
And on that note, Brock, because we talked about, Danny, you said that your kids don't like either. My daughter loves the smell of cigars. She wants cigars when she's old enough to try those, and she wants to drink whiskey. So I'm very blessed on both counts.
I was going to say that's where I wish my kids would kind of go, but I kind of wish they wouldn't, because I'd have to share.
Yeah, right.
It's like all of my snacks, all of my foods, all of my kids get that. I don't get to eat anything for myself, but a cigar, that's all dad. Although my wife will show up.
You know what? That's one of my favorite things, whether it be hanging out with the guys or hanging out with my daughter or my son. I love to share with them the things that I'm passionate about and see them have that passion about it as well. Yeah. I love to give other people's whiskey. I love to give other people cigars and see them, especially if they're brand new, man, bringing them into the fold and just kind of opening them up to it. Open them up to it.
That's quite a legacy to leave for sure. Definitely. That's a thing where I introduced my son to raw oysters actually on our trip this summer. And I wasn't sure how he would, I wasn't sure that he would even like them. And he took one and was just like, these are amazing. And I ended up having to share my baker's dozen with him because he was all about them.
See what you started, man.
I know.
Well,
right?
And I'll tell you, you talk about leaving a legacy. I mean, you can't really see it very well, but it's actually right here, all the way in the back in the wooden box.
Your Booker's?
It's the Booker's is up top. That is one of my favorites.
You got a different one, Becker?
Down here, this is a Scotch. This is a Highland Park 17 Delight.
Okay.
And it's not a cheap bottle. My wife bought it for me a few Father's Days ago, and I've sworn that the only times that I will drink it is on or around Father's Day when I can see my kids and they can enjoy it with me.
There you go.
So that bottle should last me a while because I don't see my daughter or my son very often.
Yeah.
But that should last into.
Are you looking to adopt anytime? I know this 52-year-old kid, and he's a lot of fun, man. I got to tell you, he'll mow your lawn.
I'll tell you what, brother, if I ever see you around Father's Day and you can enjoy it with my kids, we'll enjoy it together.
There you go. I
appreciate that. You're very kind.
So one last question I got for you, Keith. I'm curious, and I know Danny's not going to be able to answer this because he's not into the bourbon scene the way you and I are in a way, but do you have an infinity bottle?
It's a funny question because I've had a bottle that I want to use for an infinity bottle for a couple of years now, but I haven't gotten around to actually making it yet. So yeah, I do have the intent of doing it. It's a fantastic idea. I've heard from people that say that they turn out terribly, and I hate it. And I think that a lot of people that say that have mixed smoky scotches with unless that's all you like is really smoky scotches, which there are people out there, and I enjoy smoky and sweet scotches, so I'm not particularly one or the other. I think that the only advice that I can offer with that is if you were going to make an infinity bottle and you don't want it to taste like smoke, don't add anything smoky to it. If you want to do a smoky infinity bottle of a scotch, you want to do a regular infinity bottle of bourbon and or scotch, combine, great, but don't mix the two. Don't mix peated and unpeated whiskeys.
Definitely. I mean, mine I started with I've only got one in it, but I put basically I'm putting the last shot of the or the second to last shot of the bottle before it's finished in here, but I started off with a Maker's 100 as the first one that I put in here, and I'm excited to put the rest of them that I've got in and continue on, because I am curious, because I've heard some really good things, like just putting all the bourbons in there to see what it tastes like. So
what's an infinity bottle, gentlemen?
yes.
Oh,
okay.
that's a fantastic.
Yeah, great question. Sorry
to interrupt, but I'm like, okay, we're out of time, and no one's going to know what an infinity bottle is except for our bourbon connoisseurs. So,
right, go ahead, Keith. Tell them what it is.
So an infinity bottle basically it's a compilation of different bourbons and or scotches, depending on how you want to do it. So different whiskeys, we'll say, that you like, that you've put maybe an ounce or a half ounce or 2 ounces, whatever you like, into a bottle. You can reuse a bottle that you like the shape of it, or, it's pretty. I bought one that I think looks nice for that. That's a good one right there.
I'm reusing my gold. Yeah, my Blanton's gold.
Fantastic. But what it does is, once you fill it up, or even get halfway or whatever, then you can start enjoying it. It's recommended you want to let it sit for a while to kind of let those flavors melt together, but you don't want to let it get completely empty. So it's also kind of a legacy thing too. So over time, as you pour it and drink it and enjoy it with friends or family, you want to keep adding to it. So there's always going to be a little bit of you and what you've drank and what you've enjoyed over your previous years. The purpose of it is not to empty it. It's to keep the tradition going of flavors that you've enjoyed, and see how they kind of meld together and see how it comes together.
Yeah.
But in short, it is a bottle of multiple whiskeys that have, over a period of time, that keeps changing.
Yep. It's a really cool blending in a way, is how it comes down to. So yeah. Well, man, we could definitely continue this conversation on for sure.
This might be one of those episodes, Brock, that you just want to let it go a little longer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's one where, honestly, like, we're just going to have you back on again, Keith, is what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
We get guests on from time to time. We're like, we're just going to need to bring them back. Like, for instance, you're talking cigars. It might be something where, like, we bring Sergio and you back at the same time, and we just have a good old time. Yeah. And that, because Sergio,
I enjoy pipes as well. So, I mean, we can go that route too.
Yes.
My wife just bought me a brand new pipe, and I have to get tobacco for it so that I can take it with me on my camping trip this weekend.
What kind of pipe is it, if you mind me asking?
I don't know right offhand, honestly. Sorry. I'll have to send you a picture of it and tell you about it.
Oh man, I've got a beautiful Chacombe Atlas Blue I got to show you guys time I'm on.
Cool. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so like, that's what I'm saying. Like, we'll have to have you back for like a night where we talk cigars again.
After the bourbon tour.
Yeah.
Once we've had that opportunity to go, and we both, you've already got the experience in a lot of this, Brock, but I don't.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things I'm excited for you, Danny. I'm excited for you to learn and explore bourbons from this point forward. Because I started out as a strictly Scotch guy. Most of what I've got, I should say, well, I almost said something incorrect. Most of what I got now is bourbon, but it's only because it's so readily available, and it's a stateside thing. But the entirety of my first whiskey collection was all Scotch. But once I worked my way into bourbons, man, I love them both. They're very different and very unique, and you're going to find that out. You're going to find that bourbons are much sweeter, which is not for everybody's liking. Now you have to understand too that bourbons are a uniquely American thing, and the reason that they age so much faster is because of the climate changes that we have. We have extreme highs, extreme cold, and extreme heat, especially if you're looking at places down in Texas. Where you'll have a 15-year-old or even a 20-year-old Scotch that it's going to be a lighter color. It's going to take longer to age, but it's not going to be as punch you in the face kind of flavors, only because of the lack of extreme climate change. There's not a lot of hides there. There's a lot of lows, but there's not a lot of hides. So as that whiskey goes in and out of the fibers of the barrel, that's when you're getting that flavor being pulled in and pushed out of the barrel. That's where you're getting a lot of those tannins that you just don't see in a lot of Scotches. What I like about the Scotches is the subtle flavors that you really have to look for sometimes. But man, they're just so delicate and just so fruitful. It's just, man, there's really not a good comparison. And I'm glad that there is not, because they're so uniquely different.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, hey, Keith, thanks for coming on the show tonight and just definitely giving us quite a bit of information about bourbon. Hopefully the folks that are listening, you guys, especially the ones that are getting ready to go on the bourbon tour, like, you got either some better idea of what you're going to be experiencing, or even to be able to just have a more rounded just experience when you go on the trip. But for anybody who's like, man, bourbon, that's not something that I've tried before. I honestly, like, I'll give you this challenge, like, give it a go, honestly. And not your Jim Beams and things like that. Try to grab something that's, or ask the bartender, like, hey, what's something that you would consider like a mid-shelf bourbon or even a top shelf bourbon type of deal, and see what they put out there for that.
On that, Brock, though, and make sure if you have a like an actual whiskey bar near you, take advantage of it, because your bartender, if you have a bartender at your local hole in the wall, he or she is probably not going to know a lot about it.
No.
But if you have a whiskey bar, they are going to know what to advise to you. If you're a new drinker, tell them you're a new drinker. If you're an experienced drinker, you tell them what you like, but tell them you want to try something new. They can give you something comparable. So that definitely is a good idea.
That's a really good suggestion. I like that a lot. Well, hey, thanks again so much, Danny. Pleasure talking with you again tonight. I'm glad that you got to enjoy another cigar and hang out. I'm jealous of the fact that you guys do that, but get that. But hey, yeah, cheers, definitely. And we will be talking to you all again next week, and we're getting weeks closer to Home DadCon, so we'll all hopefully see a lot of you real soon. So you have a good night.
I'm a dad, that's what I do.